Detective Anthem stepped into Wyatt's cafe, casting a quick glance around the establishment. He then made his way to Detective Mitchell, who occupied her usual spot. He greeted her with a friendly wave, and she responded with a charming smile. "Hi," Detective Anthem greeted her. "Do you mind if I join you?" "Yeah, for sure," Detective Mitchell replied, gesturing toward a seat beside her. Wyatt, the cafe's proprietor, walked over to Detective Anthem, who settled into his chosen seat. "My usual," Detective Anthem requested, prompting Wyatt to hurry off to prepare it. Detective Anthem couldn't help but notice the chaplet on Detective Mitchell's wrist. He observed her drop her phone and play with it, her fingers dancing around the beads. "That's a nice chaplet," he commented, intrigued. Detective Mitchell looked at the chaplet and sighed. "It belongs to my late brother," she explained after a few moments of silence. "It's the only property I have left of him." Detective Anthem nodded, understanding the sentimental value. "It must be really important to you," he remarked. "Yeah," Detective Mitchell replied with a hint of emotion. "Having it around my wrist makes me feel like he's still with me. Everything I am, it's because of him." Wyatt returned with Detective Anthem's usual order and placed it before him. "Thanks," Detective Anthem said, acknowledging Wyatt. Meanwhile, in the police headquarters, the chief of police sat in his office, his fingers idly toying with a pair of knives. He gazed into the distance, deep in thought, as the day had been particularly challenging. The news of the president's impending visit only added to his unease. As if on cue, the president entered his office. "Mr. President," the chief of police greeted him, extending his hand for a handshake. "I can see you're troubled," President Kennedy remarked as they shook hands. "Just as you are, Mr. President," the chief replied. "I believe we're both concerned about the laws." President Kennedy looked around the office, searching for something specific. "Where's your spirit?" he inquired. The chief of police walked to his drawer and retrieved a bottle of brandy along with 2 wine glasses. "Please, have a seat," he invited, pouring the president a glass. As the president sipped his brandy, he asked, "Have any of them confessed to the crime?" The chief of police shook his head. "No, Mr. President. They're all demanding to see their lawyers." "Their lawyers?" President Kennedy responded with anger. "Do they comprehend the gravity of their crimes? It's time we apply force when dealing with them. For I have no patience for the rule of law in this matter." The chief of police hesitated. "Mr. President, they are all under admirer's protection. Using force on his men would invite chaos." President Kennedy pondered for a moment. "Then take them to the special quarters, and I'll keep admirer occupied," he decided, finishing his brandy. Outside the police headquarters, the scene was tense. 3 police escort vehicles, a prisoner transport vehicle, and a dozen armed officers were ready for action. Detectives Anthem and Mitchell were tasked with escorting the suspects to the anti-robbery headquarters. However, just 15 minutes into their journey, they encountered an unexpected roadblock. "What's going on? Why are we stopping?" Detective Mitchell inquired through her walkie-talkie. "There's a roadblock," one of the officers replied. Detective Mitchell immediately grabbed her gun and stepped out of the vehicle. A single gunshot echoed through the air, and Detective Mitchell fell to the ground, a fatal bullet wound in her head. "It's an ambush. We've been ambushed!" Detective Anthem shouted, panic surging through him. All the officers swiftly disembarked from their vehicles, engaging in a fierce gun battle with the attackers. Detective Anthem, though injured, urgently rushed to the prisoner transport vehicle. However, he was shot in the back and leg, collapsing helplessly as he watched the lifeless body of Detective Mitchell nearby.